I am so excited to have Kaci Brown on the podcast today. Kaci is a business consultant and marketing strategist that helps visionary entrepreneurs who want to make an impact as much as an income launch and scale online. She leverages her unique experience and background in relationship marketing to help others turn their passion into a scalable, profitable business that creates a ripple effect to pay it forward in big ways. I love that so much. She is also the co-founder of Identify Online Community, where she's extremely committed to helping impact-driven entrepreneurs grow, scale, and thrive in a like-minded network, rising together faster than they ever could alone. Thank you so much for being here, Kaci. I am so excited to talk to you.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
So in this first portion of the interview, I want to know about your motivation for becoming an entrepreneur. You know, where did it begin? At what point were you going, I need to start my own business?
Yeah, so I think fortunately for me, like the entrepreneurial seed was planted really early on in my childhood. I grew up in an entrepreneur home. My mom ran her own business where that literally started out of our kitchen. And by the time I was around that 10 to 12 age, we had desks in the front part of our living room. So you'd walk in our front door and there were 3 desks right there. So I would come home from school, there would be phones ringing, and if I had homework to do, I'd finish it up, but I'd also jump on the phones and help my mom kind of field just customer calls. And it really just taught me like how to listen to people and fill a need. And the connection, like really early on, I saw firsthand, like entrepreneur business, food on the table, you know? So I knew that it worked, but at the same time, I was a really driven student. So I got good grades. I got into college. I did dual enrollment in high school. So by the time I graduated, I had my MBA in what time frame most people have their 4-year degree. So like I was that model, like American student that, you know, got good grades, went to college, and then I went the corporate America route because of the small business that my mom had in marketing and the companies that we worked with. I had built relationships with Fortune 500 companies. So I started working with the Pillsbury company right away. And that's the doughboy and everything like that. So that was really cool. Like at 19, right out of high school, I was the youngest person on the sales team. So like at that point, I thought I had made it, you know, like I did everything right. And then I quickly found corporate America was just not for me. And I think it was just the freedom that I saw with my mom and running that business that just always stuck with me. So I had kind of that safety net of belief that entrepreneurialism and small business is possible. So, you know, it wasn't that much of a leap for me to leave corporate America. Once I figured out this is not my dream.
Right.
So, at that point, it was just, you know, seeking that freedom and that full control of, you know, creating my own time and creating my own schedule and being in control of my income and growth. And just overall satisfaction really, really is what I think planted that seed in me.
That's so amazing. And that's so cool that your parents gave you that example, that gave you that confidence that you could do that too. And so when you were watching them and their freedom and their time, and that, you know, that in corporate America, you don't get that. Was that part of your reason? I mean, it's like, were you thinking about your future family or your current family at the time? I don't know. You know, what was that like in the plans? You're going, I want to have that kind of freedom when I have a family and I want to be able to spend time with my family.
That is an excellent question, because it was like a tug of war, right? And that's what, like college, I was fearful of the entrepreneurial journey. I would like, will this really put food on the table? I mean, I grew up in a home where it did put food on the table, but could I repeat it? And so that's why, you know, corporate was safe for me. It was like, you know, a done deal, especially if I go and I do really well in school, I get a high GPA, I get my MBA, they'll respect that, right? Like, this is what I'm telling myself. And this is the argument going back and forth. And at the time, we didn't have any children when me and my husband were married. So it was one of those things where, you could, like, it was still that dream, like that dream of what a family would look like. And yeah, I did want that freedom, but at the time when I was that young, the stability kind of won that argument, that logical argument that was going on in my brain. But then when I was exposed to that sort of environment, and I realized I'm not going to micromanage people, I'm not going to deflate people. I want to lift them up, I want to encourage them, and I want to empower them. And so it was like the blinders were off. You talk a lot about family culture and corporate culture, and it was toxic. And it was one of those things where I just constantly felt deflated, and I could only go as far as someone else was going to let me. And for me, that was suffocating. So I made the leap, and my first business was photography. And that grew extremely well. I loved it. It was creative, and it allowed me to use my marketing skills and my business skills with systems, and just grow it from there. But I think the big shift really happened. We had 3 kids at the time. My husband had just celebrated his 30th birthday, and he was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And that's when it really kicked into gear of the lifestyle change. When you talk about what motivates you, and when you really start thinking about the future that you want, like at 30 years old, to realize I'm not going to be here forever and every single moment is precious, then that's when the time freedom gets really, really real. Like, we had conversations that were hard. We had to plan our wills and our estates. And like, when you're doing that, you're looking, you used to think about, again, when you go back to like how life is supposed to be, in normal, when you retire, then you get to go have vacations and have fun. And then now all of a sudden at 30, it's like that retirement isn't promised. Next year isn't promised. The next 6 months isn't promised. And so we were like, what's really going to be our priority with our family and the way we want to spend our time with them, and how we want to teach our kids, to value life and time. And so then every single moment mattered. And when it shifted dramatically like that became my obsession, just to fully live a life of freedom, like, and seriously, like, commit to it and form the life that I wanted and the work that was going to fit around the life that I wanted.
Wow. That is so powerful. I mean, I wish more people, it's hard when that is like thrust on you. It's like almost like, I wish I'd done this before this crisis arose, that we could like put that into our minds. Like, no, life is precious, even if you're not diagnosed with cancer or things, it's like, we need to recognize that this time with our families is so precious, and I love that example. And I'm really sorry to hear about your husband, and I hope that that's going well. And that cannot be easy. But
yeah,
that's incredible.
He's good. He's, fortunately it was non-cancerous, but the type of tumor that it is, like, it's our new normal. Every 6 weeks we go. We have a local medical team and a team at Duke University, where he had the surgery in North Carolina. And it's just one of those things where, every 6 weeks we know what the rotation is. And, we have to keep a calm environment. He's still on a slew of medications. We've changed his diet and all of this type of stuff. So it's a new normal for us, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's worth it. Like, it's a constant everyday reminder of what, we're living to the fullest. And it's not like you start to live like there's no tomorrow, but you do start to appreciate the time, and you have those healthy boundaries. And just, you protect your heart and your mindset, and you just don't let things that are not adding value to your life in anymore. And so as a family, it changes your priority and your perspective. And it's just, it keeps legacy top of mind. Like, what are we truly working for? What are we creating with our kids? What are we creating with our business to help impact others, to give them that same opportunity for freedom, like we're so blessed to enjoy.
Wow. That is so powerful. And so, like, what do you think your kids are seeing from this? What is that, how is that impacting them and their goals?
It's interesting because we have a 14-year-old as our oldest. our youngest is 5. And so it's split. Two boys are the oldest, 2 girls are the youngest. So it's 5, 9, 12, and 14. And it's really neat because we both work from home. And so they have a completely different dynamic of most of their friends. And it's funny because they'll ask, we'll do things like on a whim, and they're like, oh, well, my friend can't, their parents have to work or anything like that. And it's like, when you get in this environment, like, I feel like we're showing them that they have choices outside of what I was raised with, or what we were raised with. Like, we have to struggle with the idea that, we can do it. We can be an entrepreneur. We can make our own freedom. But, just like with the technology and the smartphones, like, they don't know any different. So they get to see an environment where they don't have those false beliefs to overcome. They don't have that mental, they don't have the world telling them that they can't take what they were created, or their gifts that God gave them, and create a business out of it. Like, we struggle with it, but if you sat down with a child, like, they could probably have a business plan in 5 minutes and know, and have the confidence to get on video, to share their message, to talk. They just, and it's just amazing. Like, Farah, she comes home from school and she wants to do videos with me, or she comes in and she says hello to everybody, like that. And that's her reality. That's her normal. So I'm really excited about like them just seeing. So it's a different version of what I saw when I was younger. I walked in and I saw my mom working, and then, with desks and phones and stuff like that. And it's a traditional job. And they see me like with a phone or a laptop, and we can go anywhere. We can go to London, we can go to Paris, we can, we're going to go to Hawaii. And I want them to have that richness of experience and that appreciation of other cultures, and just know that they can truly love what they do and the people that they work with, and not have to just be like, oh, I got to go to work today. And that means a lot to me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's so awesome. That's like, you just described the dream, right? That's so cool. So how would you define this legacy that you're cultivating and creating for your family? What is the legacy that you want to leave?
I think the legacy that I want to leave is just for them to know that they were created for a purpose, and that they have unique and special gifts that God gave them specifically. And I just want to create and foster an environment where they have the confidence to fully step into that, no matter what that is, that they have full control to define what success means for them, to prioritize life in a way that it's not someone else's goals for them. As a parent, it's a fine line. It's really hard to not make my goals for them be their goals for them, and to foster that spirit that God placed in them. Like, that's a constant challenge. Like, how do I coach them? How do I guide them, but not break what God intended for them? So I think for them, like, my biggest thing is legacy is that they would be happy, that they would be responsible and contribute to the world in a bigger way than they ever thought possible. That they would prioritize and be able to pour into other people and duplicate the same thing in their family. Like, just to appreciate that ripple effect that they can have on others, from like small acts of kindness to a simple word of encouragement to a smile. And then that they would just be so crazy driven with using their gifts that they would be able to be generous in every aspect of life, not only, fulfilling whatever they have and obligations for their own family, but they'll just be rich beyond measure, so that they can see someone else in need and like not even bat an eye, like just jump in and go take care of it.
I love that. I love that so much, Cassie. Thank you so much. This whole discussion is just beautiful. And I know, like, that really inspires me to think, how am I living to intentionally make that time so that, we're living life to the fullest. Thank you so much, Cassie. So where can my audience connect with you and find you online?
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time. I love Facebook. So it's Kaci Brown HQ. On Facebook and on Instagram. And I have the Brace for Impact podcast, where I just really, I love sharing stories of inspiration and just sort of like bringing people along with what's going on in our world, in our life, and just kind of being that voice or that beacon that someone they need a spark, right? And the more people hear it and the more people to see it, because that was my own transformation. The more that I was around other people and exposed to other people, like it allowed me, like how I talked earlier, like if you just step outside of that cage, and a lot of the times we're placing that cage on ourselves. So the Brace for Impact podcast is super, super important for me. And that website is amplifymyimpact.com. And every week I host a free call, like free live streamed in Facebook. So if you connect with me on Facebook, you get on the call list. It's absolutely free. And that is meant to like give you an opportunity to just meet and talk and get introduced with other people who are doing this. Because again, like it was that environment that really allowed me to give myself the freedom to dream that this is possible.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Cassie. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you're welcome. I love it. Thank you.
So that concludes the first portion of the interview. And then on the second portion, I want to go a little bit deeper into what was your biggest obstacle to starting your business?
Oh gosh, I think I was my biggest obstacle to starting my business. Mm-hmm. I struggled with, now I understand it as imposter syndrome, but at the time when you're first kind of dreaming or thinking about certain things, you don't realize you have so much in life that you've been programmed by others. Like, for me, the struggle was no one told me I could be a photographer. No one said I could start my own business. And I grew up, in a wonderful small town in an environment where I thrived, like I was confident. But now as I study, more in psychology and doing my inner work to continue to grow so I can, not only grow myself, but help others that I work with, I'm realizing that my confidence was conditional on performance on other people. I did a lot of sports. I was the captain, but someone appointed me captain. I was a starter for softball and for volleyball. I dabbled a little bit in basketball, but I was a lot better at defense than I was offense. So count out a lot. But still, someone else was telling me when I could go in, when I needed to come out, what I needed to do, if I was good enough. And so you kind of train your brain that way. And it's hard as an adult where you have to shift into that. You have to give yourself permission. Like you have to take the lead. And that is the hardest thing it took me, when I first started my photography business, it took me 3 years to call myself a professional photographer. Wow. I was so focused on, in the beginning, everything that I didn't have, and I didn't appreciate my strengths, because I went to school for marketing and business, and I had my MBA, but I did not have any certifications in photography. I didn't have a master's of photography. I didn't go to art school. So like I had this chip on my shoulder. I would go to photographer meetings and I'd meet other photographers who were master photographers, and they were publishing this and that. And, and there's little old me who, I couldn't afford to even be mentored by a professional photographer or convince anyone to let me carry their bags, at least for a wedding, like to kind of apprenticeship. And so like I took a nature photography course. Like that was my education. I was like, okay, flowers won't move too much unless the wind gets crazy, and it was literally at the Okefenokee Swamp. I took pictures of alligators and turtles and flowers. And that's where I learned about aperture and manual mode and the everything that had to do with cameras and what equipment that I needed. And so I came home from that workshop, and my husband asked me, like, I'm a nerd when it comes to research. Like when it comes to tech and research, like I can tell you everything. So he just asked me, what did your instructor shoot with? And he was a National Geographic photographer. So he'd been published all over the world. And I just like spilled it out. I'm like, he had this and that, and you should see this lens. And did you know a prime lens was not like completely different from a zoom and all of this type of stuff? And later that night, he came back to me with a printout from Amazon, and he handed it to me. And he said, now here is all of your equipment. go pay for it. And I really wholly, honestly believe if he had not taken that leap for me, that I would have just sort of dabbled and made my business work, because I would not have made that significant investment in professional equipment. But because he did, I had to pay for it. So that night I had packages, I put them together, I put it out there, and I started getting booked, and I paid for my equipment. But it was that jumping off point that even at that point, like, because my husband believed in me, it was almost like he was tapping me on the shoulder and giving me permission to fully step into my business. And he's been doing it ever since. Like, he lets me just go with all of these crazy ideas. And I'm really fortunate to have that support, because I really was the biggest obstacle in the beginning, for sure.
And he gave you that urgency, like, okay, this is legit
Yeah.
now, Cassie. Like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it goes,
you gotta fund this.
It goes back to that performance confidence. It's like, holy heck, like, I've got to pay for this now. Like, so now it's as good as done. It's got to happen, you know. Nice. But if it was just me on my own, I probably would have just kept baby stepping it and not grown nearly as much or fast as I did, because, you know, he gave me that push.
I'm a little curious, did you experience any like barriers to the industry? Like, were other photographers going, oh, you didn't do the same education as I did? You know, what was your reaction to that?
Oh yeah, I had to learn to get thick skin really, really fast. And I am non-confrontational. I don't like conflict. And I think that was the thing that I realized really, really quickly, that there are two types of people in every industry. There are the kind who are going to foster and teach and encourage. Doesn't matter, like, they don't feel threatened. You know, they're confident and comfortable in their own business, and they appreciate the craft so much that they identify with someone who has that same passion, and it lights them on fire, right? So that's one side. There's another side who just, it doesn't matter. There was even blogs written, and this is just photography, but it's every single industry. They called them the grumps, you know, the ones who are like, oh, well, you know, you haven't put in your time, you haven't done this, you don't have, like, and they're the ones that keep those voices in our heads, like, because they're threatened. And then it's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. I mean, I totally understand, like, you know, standing for integrity and having, you know, standards of quality and all of this type of stuff. But if you're truly committed to an industry and you want to be a leader in that industry and you're committed to standards of quality, then lift others up and encourage them to meet those standards of quality. Don't try to squish them and have that kind of like, that there's the abundance mindset and then there's the scarcity mindset. And so those that were just like that would literally just rip people apart, and then it would just be so passive aggressive. Like, and I think that's the other thing that kind of molded me into and in photography, like, I speak out a lot more about it now in the digital marketing world than I did photography, because, like, I was a new kid on the block. Right. So even with all of the, you know, the referrals, my clients loved me, and, like, in my own little world, I was fine. But when I started stepping out into the bigger industry, it got really nasty and scary. And even to the point where, you know, everyone has their story of just, you know, being taken advantage of, and someone who can market really, really well and teach, but they don't teach anything. It's all surface level.
Right.
And so I had an experience like that where I had finally saved up to pay for a mentoring. And it was such a huge letdown. And I was so mad because I didn't have that money to waste.
Yeah.
You know? And but it fired me up, because I came back and I created a photographer's retreat for 2 years in a row, where I did my own retreat and brought my own speakers in who had integrity, who really cared about fostering and mentoring people. And so it taught me what I was capable of. And it taught me that, you know, of those two lanes, that I was the one who wanted to foster and lead innovation and encouragement. And that's pretty much the lane that I've stayed in every industry since. And, you know, just in the last couple of years, like, I've learned that I have to be a lot more vocal about it, because there's people who need to hear it, or they're going to stay, down or discouraged or never take that leap forward.
Yeah. Everybody, so many of us are raised in that mindset that we need that permission to excel. And so, yeah, we need more and more people who are putting that voice out there saying, you can do this. You got this.
Yeah, you can. And if you fail, so what? Yeah. Figure out what worked and what didn't work, and then get up and keep going.
And there's enough room out there for all of us. I love in it that, it's not, the more you learn about these industries and things, like, you're not really competitors, because you all have your own audience, and if you're supporting each other and lifting each other up, then all of us are lifted up. So it's like, we there's room for all of us. It's okay.
Totally.
That's awesome. So where do you see going forward? How do you see this playing out with you? You have this permission to do all these incredible things. Like, what's next for Kaci Brown?
So what's next for me? Well, after, my husband's diagnosis, I transitioned from the photography world, because at that point, I started to realize we had younger children. I wasn't able to scale. I can't scale 52 weeks a year and only shooting weddings.
Right.
But what I was really, really good at was relationships, word of mouth, and networking. So I started pairing those and leveraging those with social media and teaching other businesses to do the same. So all along, like, I circled back to business and marketing. And now my MBA is a nice little 3 letters to put after my name, but like, it doesn't mean anything, honestly, to me. The results of the clients that I work with mean more to me than those 3 letters. And so what's next is just being able to reach more businesses, to meet them where they're at. There's so many people who have incredible products and services that they're offering, and it could be in an offline or brick and mortar space, or it could be someone who had just started online. And so my area of expertise is really kind of helping them identify the opportunities to scale at a larger level, reach more people, and ultimately create that ripple effect of income and impact. And because that is the one thing that I've found, like, a lot of impact-driven entrepreneurs like us, like, they get uncomfortable talking about income, right? And that's another huge barrier that we have to break over. And it's one of those things that it didn't really click for me until Alex Sharpin said, if you have a problem with money, you haven't given enough away. And once that sunk in with me, because when I talk about, keeping yourself inside of a box and limiting yourself to what your potential is, it's not just creativity, like creatively and what you can contribute or make. It's also like an income level. I had done the math. I was like, okay, I need X amount to retire my husband and pay off the bills and like put away for college and pay for weddings and I'm good. I don't need anything else over that. And, I was raised in a really conservative Christian Southern Baptist, and we're still Christian. But the shift was like, wait a second. If I have something that's working and I can grow and scale it to impact more people and help more businesses and in a way reach more people and increase my income, then I can help more people. Because at that point, if I have what I need, everything else is like a cherry on top. And so that's what I ultimately want to create. And that's what's next for me is just literally growing and scaling what's working so I can continue to contribute to others.
That's awesome. I think that so many people have this fear of success, thinking that it's all for them. And it's like, no, this is not. This is about making impact. It's about being able to serve others and lift others. Like we've been saying this whole time, that the more you succeed, the greater your capacity to help and serve other people. So I love that. I love that so much. Thank you so much, Kaci. So that concludes the second portion of the interview. And I'm so excited to ask you this next question for the third portion is, how do you balance business and family? Okay. What is the system or strategy or routine or habit? I mean, obviously your family is so super important to you. Like, you want to maximize that time. And what do you do? How do you prioritize your family?
Okay. So I think There is no, just to kind of be like everyone who's listening, I think there's no magic way, or one size fits all, or that the idea of perfectly balanced is honestly, it's a myth, right? But we all go through seasons in life. And the way that I've been able to navigate those seasons is, I think for me, and what it works for our family is time blocking. So I have a calendar and family stuff goes on there first. I drive the kids to school when they come home from school. So blocks for the family go on first. Then if they have practices, of course, I have to figure out, okay, this is the last time I could take a coaching call, or this is the last time I could do an interview to be able to transition into, my husband is the planner. And it used how you can say it only takes 20 minutes to get somewhere, but it really, like with kids, it could take 35 to 40 because you have to get the shoes on, you have to get them in the car, you have to allocate for red lights. So that's what my husband does. And then I take that time and I reverse engineer like the time that they have to be there. And so that's how I'm blocking out my schedule. And then they're also like, it's almost like the perfect ingredients of of a soup. And there's got to be a huge dose of flexibility in there, because things are going to come up. Kids are going to get sick. We had to reschedule this interview because yesterday I had to take our 5-year-old. She has and for the doctor, she was complaining about her ear with a double ear infection. So just the amount of flexibility in the way that you manage expectations and communicate, you were so graceful about it. And I wholeheartedly believe it's because I'm a mom and I communicate that my family is important. And that's one thing that I learned with photography is that if my clients knew they are important to me, but so is my family, if anything ever came up, we already had that relationship and that understanding, just like I would respect something for them if something came up and they had to reschedule, it was reciprocated, And so I think just managing expectations with the relationships that you have, whether it's, family or client or anything like that, that's huge. Because if you start moving your things that are really important for other things to come in, that's where the disconnect really, really happens. And it's almost like you have to protect your own boundaries with yourself. So you have to prioritize, okay, my family's number one. And even though I really, really want to take this meeting or this interview, or I could close this client, they will understand. If they are your perfect client, they will understand that your calendar is full today or this week, and you can't get it until next week. And I've had to learn to accept that. I don't have to jump through hoops and I don't have to bend over backwards, and I sleep a lot better at night. I have better clients and I have better relationships because they know I value relationships and that I'm going to treat my relationship with them just as importantly and prioritize it just like my family. Because when I'm with a client, it doesn't matter what level of client they are. I am 100% present, 1,000% all in, and they're going to get all of me. And that, I think, reflects in the way that you protect your boundaries. And so it's just, for me, block scheduling, family goes in first, and heaps and heaps and heaps of flexibility and adaptation, and just you have to kind of marry that back and forth of being structured with a schedule, but also willing to adapt to things that change in life.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that so much. And that's something, just being able to communicate with your clients, with your family, what your priorities are, what your values are, then everybody understands. If they don't know you or they don't understand that, or you don't communicate that, and then you say, I got to reschedule, then it's confusing. There's ambiguity there. And so it's super important to have those boundaries. So thank you for articulating that so well and how important that is for you. Thank you so much, Cassie. I've loved having you on, and it was just great talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you for what you're doing and being not only the voice, but the example, with your own family and your own business. we need more people to step up and speak up and share, behind the scenes. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it's not always easy, but it's totally worth it.